Smart Chiropractor Show, January 18th, 2022. And today we have an awesome featured guest. Jason and I had the opportunity to sit down with Dr. Ben Johnson, chiropractor for Tennessee Titans. He is a younger guy who is, moving quick. He has a fantastic practice in the Gulch located in that hotbed of activity in Nashville, Tennessee. He's the Tennessee Titans team chiropractor. I believe he won Tennessee Chiropractor of the Year award maybe last year. I don't want to overextend it, but I believe I saw that online. He's a fantastic guy, an awesome chiropractor, and a really good model if you're a young doc, or maybe you are even coming into your own as a doc, of somebody who's taken action steps to get the results he desired. So without further ado, we're going to play an interview with Dr. Ben Johnson, and stay tuned. Dr. Jason and I will be back afterward to recap some of our thoughts regarding the opportunities that Dr. Ben Johnson has created over time. So here's Dr. Ben Johnson. Hey, Smart Chiropractors, I'm Dr. Jeff Langmaid here with my co-host, Dr. Jason Deitch. And today's featured guest, we have a special featured guest, and that's Dr. Ben Johnson in Nashville Chiropractic. Ben, really appreciate you taking a few minutes, chatting down about sports chiropractic and what you've been up to.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
I want to peel it back. How'd you get involved in sports chiropractic to begin with? Was this something that you were really pushing and interested in school, or is this something that developed over time as you got out there in the field? I'd love to know a little bit of the history, and then we'll get into today and what you're going to be up to tomorrow as well.
Yeah, so I was definitely interested in sports chiropractic. I was an athlete growing up, and I actually had a back injury and then saw a chiropractor that when I was at the University of Tennessee, and he worked with me, and I was like, oh, this is something that you can get into. I didn't really know that. And I'd never even really been to a chiropractor before, knew nothing about it. And then I was looking at other options. I actually was thinking about being an optometrist at first. And then I realized one day that I was going to be in a dark room asking people what's better, one or two, all day long. And I was like, I don't know if that's for me. But the sports thing is actually what got me interested in chiropractic as a profession. And so then I was trying to decide where I wanted to go. And I grew up a Cardinals fan, so I went to St. Louis and went to Logan.
There you go.
And they had a good sports chiropractic program. They were working with the University of Missouri and with a lot of other teams and stuff like that. So you could really get your hands on athletes, see kind of what that is like, and then also being able to go to Mizzou and be in the training room and all that kind of stuff. So you really got the feel for that. So I knew that was something I would love to get into. Fast forward several years, and one of the first things we did when we opened our practice here in Nashville was I had started reaching out to some of the colleges in town, trying to see if they had a chiropractor they were working with, and what that looked like. And trying to figure out who to reach out to, and figured out that it's the head athletic trainer is who's going to typically make those decisions. But initially I started working with Belmont University with their track and cross country teams, and kind of set that up through their head coach. So I was, instead of being in the training room and actually working with the training staff and all that, I was in the hallway outside the training room as kind of a volunteer working with them. But through that, I developed a relationship with one of their trainers, who then became the head trainer. And so she started referring some other athletes, other sports to me, and that worked out great. And kind of through just practice, everyday life, kind of got involved with the Nashville Sounds, our AAA team here, and worked with them a little bit. So my goal was always, it would be my dream to work with the NFL team. That would be, top tier kind of thing is what I was hoping to do. And then one day I got a call from somebody with the Titans, and we would get calls a lot, and it was always ticketing, and they were trying to get us to rent out a suite or have a Christmas party there or something like that. And so I'm like, and I was frustrated. So I was like, all right, I answered the phone. I was like, hello. And it was one of the trainers at the Titans. I was like, oh, and I think I skipped the next patient, just like sorry, you're probably going to have to reschedule them. So I talked to him for a while, and he told me that they were looking for somebody new, and that they had reached out to other trainers, athletic trainers in the area, and they reached out to Belmont and the Nashville Sounds, and they had recommended me. And so it's kind of more of like there's some situations where you kind of get grandfathered into that if you work for somebody that happened to be a team chiropractor, or you just happen to know the right person at the right time. Or I like to think that I kind of grinded for a little bit, and I was volunteering my time trying to get, trying to get my name out there so that people would think of me as the sports chiropractor. Yeah. And so worked out from there. Interview with them and talked to them and went in, and it happened, and it was great. Took a while because it was the draft was right around then, and so they're always busy right then. So I was like, I didn't hear anything for like a month, and I was a little worried. But then after that happened, I got a call. That was good.
Ben, I love your story. Both of us, Jeff and I, love your story. That's obviously why we're here. You got the logo going on right here. Listen, this is very much about paying your dues. It's one thing when, a friend or family member happens to know somebody who's the decision maker, or the star athlete themselves. But your story, I think, is such an inspiring one, because it's how it happens for many of the docs that are out there. Tell us, your experience. I mean, it was your dream at the time. Do you love doing it now? Is it everything you wanted it to be? Maybe give us some experience that you've had. And I also know you're not the only chiropractor for the only NFL team. So what's your experience working with other chiropractors? I know you're part of a national group of chiros that do this. Tell us more about what you're up to with the Titans, and just what it looks like for chiropractors, in the NFL and other sports teams that you may know of as well.
My situation with the Titans and how I think it works for most, at least NFL chiropractors, is that I go in a couple days during the week for usually a couple hours, and I'll work on people that, whether it's some of the players that just want to kind of get loosened up, or one of the head trainer will bring somebody over that's injured and want me to either assess them or treat them or work on them like that. There are a few different ways that it kind of works in the NFL. There are some people that are doing just adjusting, and they're just filling that gap kind of. Other people are doing a lot of soft tissue work, and doing mostly ART, myofascial release kind of stuff. And some people are doing a blend. I'm mostly just adjust. Sometimes if somebody needs something, I'll do some soft tissue work, but it's definitely something that's different than everyday practice, because there's so many providers under one roof. And so you're working for a team and you're working with a team. And so, we've got athletic trainers that can do soft tissue stuff. We've got massage therapists that do it also. And then there's, we've got a PT that's also one of the trainers, and he's great. He's doing a lot of the rehab and getting people developing rehab plans and doing all that stuff. So a lot of the things that I would do in my practice, I'm not actually doing with the team, because there's other bodies there to do it. And that's been talking to other team chiropractors. That seems to be kind of how it is a lot of times, is that you're kind of the hierarchy would be like the head athletic trainer is like primary care, and then you got a bunch of specialists that he's going to kind of refer to when needed, and they're going to fill their individual role. And the biggest thing is being okay doing that. There are some people that get into that situation and they think that they should be, head guy, that they want to be the decision maker, they want to be all that kind of stuff. But losing the ego and filling in where you need to, and doing what you're asked to do. There are definitely times where I see somebody and I'm like, yeah, I could maybe help them a little bit more, but I'm gonna go through the medical director, who is the head trainer, and talk to him and let him make any decision that he wants to make as far as that goes. And the other thing with it is that there's it's a business. Every player is their own business. And so there might be times where they want to, they're not always wanting to share what's going on with them. There's other things. So there's always a balance of that, because if a player gets hurt and let's say they're like a practice squad player or something, they get hurt and, you know, they might get cut right then or something. And so you got to be, everything's going to funnel through that medical director or the head trainer. And then he's going to be the one. So if I assess something, I'm going to tell him my findings, and he's going to be the one that talks to the player, talks to the coach and the general manager, and that kind of stuff. So you want to funnel everything up to that. And not everybody is happy doing that, but that's part of the job. And yeah, there's some great chiropractors that work with the other teams. I've gotten to meet a lot of them, probably most of them from the games, traveling. We tend to meet up either before or after the game. A lot of times we'll just go like right on the 30-yard line right after the game and say, hey, grab a picture, talk for a minute. And it's interesting to see kind of how teams are set up a little bit differently. Like, I'm the only chiropractor for the Titans, but there are other teams that have multiple. They'll have two, sometimes three even at times, where there might be somebody just doing soft tissue and then somebody just adjusting. And they'll have it separate like that because their hands are full and they don't have enough time. So yeah, so like I was saying, my typical week, I go in for a couple hours, a couple days a week. And then I'll get to the game early, and we'll do treatment at the hotel if it's a travel game. But before the game in the locker room is the busiest time. That's when I'm sweating. There's a lot of guys. There might be games where there's one day there wasn't a trash can nearby, so every time I ripped the face paper, I'd ball it up and just throw it on the ground. And at the end of it, I counted them all up. And that game, I'd worked on 40% of the team, that was a lot. But yeah, like you were saying about the national group of other chiropractors, the Professional Football Chiropractic Society is a great group of people. We've got the combine coming up, where all the teams will be there looking at up and coming talent and assessing that. The trainers have a conference. All the other medical providers will have kind of meetings and stuff then. And so as chiropractors, we put on a conference there, continuing education kind of thing. And it's really good. We get to do it in person this year, as long as things keep going the way they're going.
I think that's awesome. And one thing that you bring up, Ben, that I would love to dive into a little bit more is I've been excited. You know, I wouldn't consider myself to be the pinnacle sports chiropractor by any stretch of the imagination. However, I've been just excited to see how much evolution there's been in that field and probably how much there is still left to go. And it's always just mind-boggling to me. There's so many people out there, you know, struggling that aren't professional athletes that are skeptical of chiropractic. Yet every professional athlete and sports organization has a chiropractor on the team. And the second level of that's fascinating, I'd love to ask you about, and you sort of mentioned it, is that many of them are using chiropractors, what I'm going to loosely refer to as sports performance, more than necessarily rehab. What is that true? Do you find that most of the, athletes, I know everybody's banged up after like the first week of the year, so everybody's dealing with some amount of issues, but do you find that most of them are visiting you for, essentially performance and rehab? What's the splits? What have you found interesting? I'd love just insight from kind of inside the locker room as far as how are professional athletes thinking of and utilizing chiropractic at that level?
Yeah. So, I think one way to kind of word it is, so every time I'm in the training room with the Titans, I have a note on my phone. And I just have the date and what player I saw and then what was going on with them. And I would say majority of them, I write general adjustment, just checking them out, giving them a once over. They're, if you think about it, what they're doing as athletes, muscles move bones. And so if joints aren't moving properly, you're not having good mobility with things. And it could be from practice, like they got jammed up, they got hit hard, they fell, something like that. Or honestly, a lot of times it's the plane. You got massive people sitting in tiny airplane seats. And so people like at the hotel the night we get there, sometimes people will come up and they're like, now all of a sudden they have an issue. But most of the time it's kind of just like I wouldn't even necessarily call it maintenance, but just like like performance based, like just trying to get loosened up, trying to get everything, making sure it's moving well. I saw a guy yesterday. He came over, and I was checking him out, and he just wanted to make sure his low back was moving well. And so I checked him out. I was like, "You're fine. You don't need anything. Everything's good." So there's a lot of that sometimes. And then you have people that do have an injury or that have just aches and pains, that kind of thing. They think about it when they're watching film. They're having meetings, which is a big part of the day. That's a desk job.
Yeah.
And then they're going out and they're thankfully doing a variety of things with practice and stuff. But, practice is a small portion of the day versus the rest of the day and meetings and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's definitely a performance aspect of that for sure.
That is absolutely awesome. I could talk to you for hours. I want to learn more of what's it like on the plane and, all of the stories. I'm sure you can't tell us and all, but what advice would you, give other chiropractors who are interested in this, concept? Some would argue, wow, well, how do you run a practice if you're on I'm traveling with the team on a regular basis and so on. I saw your wife practices with you and so on. Does it only work when you got, family together and so on? Or what would you recommend others who are curious and interested in maybe even considering doing something like this, not for the Titans, of course, but for any other team out there?
Yeah, it's definitely possible to run a practice with it. I mean, like I said, I'm going for a couple of hours, 2 to 3 times a week. And then working on the weekends. So you can't really be open on the weekends if you're doing this. But thankfully, most of the time I go, it's kind of around my lunch break. So we can make it work that way. We, like you said, my wife is a chiropractor, and we opened our office together. And January 2021, we hired an associate who's been great. So they kind of can see patients when I'm out. You have the Thursday games, Monday games. That's where you're going to miss a whole day, and that can be a little difficult if you are just starting out, one man show kind of thing. That's you kind of need those days sometimes. But it is nice to have the help, because sometimes there might be a time where, like this week, the schedule was I just got the schedule for practice and stuff this week, and so I had no way I had people scheduled that we're constantly having to call people and reschedule them, but they understand and they get it for the most part, or they'll hop in with one of the other providers. I think biggest advice is just get in where you can, be patient, and kind of work the ground up. Like like you said, you got to pay your dues. And so part of that is starting volunteering your time, being available, not being pushy. You're not, I think if people see that you're generally wanting to help and wanting to offer your time versus you're trying to advertise and you're constantly selling, that's where you can make relationships. And so relationships is the way to move up and to get in. If you wanted to get into professional sports and start being a chiropractor for professional athletes and stuff, you definitely need the clinical side of that, and you need the experience with working with athletes. But more important, you need to be a team player. You need to build relationships. Those people have to get along with you, traveling with you and stuff. And so that's a really important part of that. So be humble, be patient. Thankfully, it's one of the things like I said, it was kind of my dream to work with an NFL team, but I never really thought it would happen, and especially not as early as it did in my practice, in my career. But it did, and thankfully it worked out, and it's been great.
Ben, I think that's absolutely fantastic. You bring up a couple points that I think are very important for smart chiropractors out there that listen to Jason and I. We always talk about, results follow actions. You've clearly taken the action steps to get the result. And I think that's a powerful message mixed with patience, which I think is fantastic, and a relationship first approach. Keep up the great work. I want to encourage every doc out there. Check out what Ben is up to. You can visit his website. You can follow him on social. And if you are interested, also reach out to the professional network. That's really a great opportunity, I think, to understand more of what Ben and the rest of the NFL chiros are doing day in and day out. And Ben, you've been super generous with your time today. We appreciate you coming on, and have a great day.
Absolutely. Tighten up.
Thanks, Ben.
And that was Dr. Ben Johnson, chiropractor for Tennessee Titans. What an awesome interview. Great guy doing really cool stuff in the profession. Jason, what was the take-home message that you had from us chatting with Ben?
You know, I love the I have a dream story. It just gets me every time, no pun intended, being, you know, the day after yesterday. It's a beautiful thing. You know, he started off committed to wanting to be of service to as many as he can. And he had a dream of, you know, connecting with the NFL, what many of us as children, you know, admire as we grow up and get older, and hope one day we can sort of crack through the ceiling and work with our heroes, work with the people that, you know, we look up to and we admire. In this case, some of the world's finest athletes. And, you know, your questions, you know, he was terrific. Your questions were great. You know, are they coming just because they're always constantly beat up would seem like the obvious, you know, answer. And, you know, he's like, no, this is what they do so that they can keep performing at their best. It was exactly what we had hoped for. What a terrific guy. And, you know, kudos to him. You know, these conversations, you and I talk about it all the time. It's almost like a broken record, but for perhaps new people watching and so on, are very much designed to do what we think of as create that, what we think of as Bannister moment, as in referencing Roger Bannister, the guy who broke the 4-minute mile. And for years and years and years, nobody ever thought it could be done. It was, quote, impossible to do. Nobody had done it. And then all of a sudden, this guy visualizes and trains and works. And as you always say, results follow action. Took a ton of action and one day breaks the 4-minute mark. And wouldn't you know, but months later, weeks later, all of a sudden, once people realized that somebody could do it, other people started doing it too. And I love these kinds of stories for exactly that kind of message, or that lesson, is that, you know, all it takes is one person who says, you know, I've always wanted to, and maybe I'll just show up and do my best, and I'll be generous, and I'll be kind, and I'll give out of my abundance, and I'll work hard and trust the process and not give up because it's not happening on my time schedule, but I'll follow the principles of working hard, being generous, and doing it for the sake of doing it because it's the right thing to do. And these stories are just too coincidental to not take the lessons that when you follow those principles, amazing, miraculous, seemingly impossible things actually do happen. What a great guy. It was just a pleasure to talk to him. I learned a lot. Phenomenal interview. What a terrific guy.
Yeah, Ben is a great guy. Fantastic interview, great story, and I've been bullish on sports chiropractic for a while. I just think there is so much top end there. There's so many lessons that can be learned by how athletes take care of their bodies, and how that can trickle down to the athlete in all of us, using smart chiropractor terms, part of our weekly topics and monthly campaigns there. It's impactful. It's important. They are stories that need to be told. And stay tuned next week, where we have another featured guest that is awesome, and we're going to keep them coming with great stories about chiropractors doing awesome things. And if you'd like to be featured, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, jeff@thesmartchiropractor.com, and we will happily have a conversation with you and showcase your story to thousands of chiropractors worldwide. Hey, if you like that video, be sure to subscribe to The Smart Chiropractor. We are posting videos on how you can market your chiropractic practice in a way that teach and invites consistency. We have found that is the magic formula to big time growth. So if you like this video, be sure to comment down below, smash that subscribe button, or visit us at thesmartchiropractor.com.